Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Patriots Pulse podcast. I'm here with Andrew, also known as PGS Nest, or Nest PGS. Sorry, we've been away for a while. It's been what do you think, Andrew? About like a month or so, maybe a little bit more.
Probably. I mean, we made one guest appearance on Ben and
Yeah,
Zach's show that one night after they hired Vrabel, but yeah, it's been a minute.
yeah. So I mean, we're back to talk football. We're back to talk Patriots. A lot has happened. There's a lot to go over. Um, Andrew and I'm pretty sure we will be somewhere together next week. So that's something that we could talk about as well. But besides that, Andrew, how have you been?
I've been doing good, man. Had a long time off from school. About to go back next week after the Senior Bowl, so that's gonna be fun. Going there, coming back, and immediately moving back in. But yeah, how you been?
I've been pretty good too. It's been a month off of school as well. It's just been straight Patriots or just work or tweeting about the Patriots while I'm at work. Um, but besides that, I'm in the same boat as you. You know, it's gonna be the Senior Bowl next week. School starts that same week. I already let my professors know, what the case is, that I'm gonna be in Alabama of all places. But I'm
Yeah, I
excited.
gotta
I'm
do that
excited.
still.
But
But
go
yeah, so
ahead.
we missed a lot of news. Let's just jump right into this thing. Mike Vrabel, head coach of the New England Patriots. Yes, it's been that long, but we're really here to talk about the coordinators. That the the coordinators are all set on the staff. Offensive coordinator, they got Josh McDaniels, Terrell Williams as the defensive coordinator, and they brought back Jeremy Springer on special teams. Carlos, I'm gonna start with just asking you your general thoughts on. We'll start with McDaniels.
All right. So McDaniels, I'm a big fan of the hire just because I even put out a tweet a couple days ago before he even got officially hired that like he was never fired or relieved of his duties because of being a bad play caller. He actually got promoted to a head coach. I said twice. A lot of people corrected me and said three times, which is true because he did turn on the Colts job last minute. But he did so well as a play caller that he got those head coaching opportunities. That's not someone that's just casually just sitting on the offensive coordinator job market that often. And with him still living in the area, why not bring him back? He wants to come back. Obviously, there was mutual interest on both sides. So I love it. I do think that he's going to bring out the best in the offensive players that are able to buy in and understand his scheme. Um, he's going to I think he's going to change this offense depending on the amount of skill players that they add. Um, I do think there's a ceiling with the current roster they have right now, but depending on what they do in free agency, the draft, which is a whole nother topic, I do think that Josh McDaniels was the right hire.
Yeah, and I think adding on to your point there, I think McDaniels as an offensive coordinator, he's able to sort of improve the floor of the team that he's given. I mean, we saw it in 2020, the Cam Newton led offense. I mean, I loved Cam Newton as a player, but after that TJ Watt hit a few years ago, he was never the same. Um, I mean, they I'm surprised they won as many games that season as they did. They went 7-9, I believe.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
like
and
not the best record, but it didn't look as bad as the record showed. That makes sense.
I know they kind of surprised me with that. Their offense really wasn't even that half bad, even though he had to work the receiver core that he had to work with. Aside from the Ryan Izzo at tight end, it was um, Jacoby Myers before we really knew about Jacoby Myers, like how
Mhm.
good he was going to be with us. Demir Bird, N'Keal Harry, and then who was the other one? Dante Moncrief, and
Mm.
Gunner. Gunner was there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then 2021 they added some guys, but still, it wasn't. You didn't look at that offense on paper and go, "This is going to be like a top five offense in the league" or anything. But they were the sixth ranked offense that year. I mean, he raises the floor of the offense that he's given, and I think that is very important for first of all Drake May, but the team as a whole heading into next year, given what the current roster is at right now. I mean, we still have a whole offseason ahead of us to improve the roster, but I mean, I think that is a very positive piece that he brings to the table.
Yeah, and I one of the talking points that I had was Same thing as you. Like that sixth ranked offense, or in terms of scoring, like that's impressive, especially with the roster they had. They didn't have like any elite weapons or anything, and they were still up there. One of the things that I got a lot of pushback for was the fact that I was saying like, yeah, he had Mac Jones leading that offense, and people were like, oh no, they depended on the running game, blah 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 blah. Okay, so that's still indicative of how good of an offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels was, right?
Damian
But
Harris had 15 touchdowns that year.
yeah,
I'm pretty
like
sure that was that year.
they were like top, if I'm not mistaken, like top 5, if not top 3 in running metrics that season. Um, that's that's still, and they still have one of the running back. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Ramondre was there, right? Or no? Am I wrong? I
I
don't know if he
think
was
he
on the
was a
roster that
rookie.
season.
I think he was RB2, but I think it
Yeah.
was more like Damian Harris was like
Hmm. Hmm.
not really the workhorse, but it was mostly
Yeah.
Damian.
Yeah. And one thing that I actually heard Alex Bark talking about this the other day on Catch 22 is that he was saying like the McDaniel system doesn't really use like a spell back in a way. They don't use it as like, oh, you get this drive, this person gets the next drive. Like, no, they're very like, he's
Mhm.
very particular about which running back he uses for specific plays or specific just a what's the word, formations. But we're gonna see a lot of that. I think the running game is one of the things that people aren't talking about enough, that it's going to hopefully completely transform under McDaniels, because he has a very good scheme for just the running game in general, and that's something they really struggled with last season. So I do think this is going to be a bounce back year for Ramondre. Fingers crossed, because I have him in a lot of dynasty leagues as well for fantasy football. Um, and no one wanted him. Now I want to keep him. You know what I mean? So it's like that's just like my way of thinking with the McDaniels hire, that it's like, okay, this is going to be a bounce back year for Ramondre.
Well, I think that's a really good point because a lot of Josh McDaniels' offense, specifically the run game, it's a power run scheme, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that fits Ramondre so well with what he has to do. Obviously, he has to clean up the fumbling issues. We'll see how Mike Vrabel feels about that throughout the summer.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the scheme that fits him the best and the scheme that he'll be able to produce the best that he can, I think it's a great fit. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the kind of change to the outside zone this season really fit him that well. And I think that's why we also saw Antonio Gibson really
Mm-hmm.
improve as a runner. Gibson kind of shocked me. I did not think he was going to be that as efficient as a runner
Mm-hmm.
as he was last year.
Yeah, and I'm really excited. So like Ramondre in the past has said that the downhill running scheme is what he loves the most. He just likes going straight into someone's face, into a linebacker. Like he that's his favorite way, or favorite scheme to, to play in. And Antonio Gibson took advantage of the wide zone scheme last season, because clearly that's like what works for him more. The thing with McDaniels is that I think he can interpret both, or implement both. Sorry, like he's good enough to use both, and I think sorry, I think he's going to be able to use both of their like skill sets and kind of catch teams off guard a lot of times, because I do think that Antonio Gibson is like one of those upper tier running back twos in the league. I wouldn't make it seem like he's just some like scrub that's behind Ramondre, if that makes sense. Like
Mhm.
I think that he's someone that realistically he was once an RB1 on a team, and now he's you could call him, well, 1B technically, um for the Patriots in particular. I think him in that James White role is going to be really good. I'm really excited to see him in the passing game. I think that's going to be something that's going to be something. It's just something to watch, because James White, obviously, everyone knows how good James White was. I'm not saying Antonio Gibson is going to be as good as James White, but Antonio Gibson was originally a wide receiver coming out of college. A lot of people
Mhm.
viewed him as just like a pass catching back, that he was going to get a lot of volume in the passing game. And when he did get the ball in his hands, whether it was wide zone runs or like screen passes, something like pitches, something just to get the ball in his hands, he was very elusive, and like you said, he was very efficient on the ground. So I'm excited to see what McDaniels could scheme up for him.
Yeah, I will always love Antonio Gibson for winning me a fantasy championship that one year on Washington. That dude,
Oh yeah.
crazy fantasy pickup. But yeah, and I think another thing with McDaniel's coming in, I know we've been talking a lot about the positives, and I'm
Mhm.
about to get on another positive. There are some question marks regarding him. I know everyone, including myself, was frustrated with just some of the play calling that um, he's had over the last few years, or his last few years with the team. Um,
Mhm.
but he's going to head into this offseason knowing exactly who he needs to fit his offense. And
Yeah.
he's like, it's going to be a pretty straightforward plan on offense, what they're going to need and who they're going to target. And I
Mhm.
think with him doing that, they're as an organization able to really get going fast this offseason, especially with a complete like coaching staff shift right before like the Senior Bowl and uh, during the college playoffs. So I mean, it's really important to get the ground running right now.
Yeah, I also think just like the oh, I'm getting a lot of feedback. I do think that the resources they have at their disposal this offseason, like how you said, it's gonna allow him to kind of pick and choose who's gonna fit his scheme best, if that makes sense. Um, Obviously it's not going to be like the top tier elite players that fit his scheme in every single position, but like they're going to have those resources at their disposal, and he can say like this person is exactly who I want, pay them a little bit extra to bring them here. If that make like I feel like that is like something they could do this offseason. So I'm excited to see how they fill out this roster. I think he's going to have a lot of say on the offensive side, obviously, and I think that's a positive. If we want to talk about like a quick little con about him coming here, um, I am a little bit fearful for like the guys that they just drafted. I do think that like everyone's always spoken about how difficult his scheme is to pick up for younger guys, and the fact that he didn't pick and he has no like true history with like guys like Javon Baker and Jalen Polk come to mind first, obviously. Layden Robinson also comes to mind because um, just these guys on the offensive side of the ball, it's like, is he gonna like them, or is he just gonna be like, you know what? I want my own guys. I want to pick my own guys to bring into this system. So that's the one of the worries I have about him being here.
Well, it's really all what he sees when he looks back at the game film from last year. If he looks at, I'm sorry, I was so high on Baker. I thought he was going to come on late during the season just because he was it's a overused term, but he was a raw prospect
Mhm,
coming out of school. If he could put it all together, he was going to be a great receiver, but he just didn't last year. And maybe Josh McDaniels looks at him and he's like, this guy's having trouble finding out or figuring out where to line up, how to line up with the offense last year. So how's he gonna do that in my offense? So
mhm,
he might not be given a second chance. He might be cut over the summer. We'll see.
mhm,
But with Jalen Polk, I think there's a little bit more leeway with that. Again, I'm kind of shocked by how his season turned out over the summer. It looked like he was going to be a really reliable pass catcher,
mhm,
and then that never happened. So maybe
mhm,
it's something mental with him that he just has to get over. But it's all what McDaniel sees, and he's gonna get his guys either way over the offseason. They're gonna have to improve their receiver room, and it's all gonna figure it itself out over the summer when they start roster cutdowns.
yeah, yeah, and before we change topics to like the defensive side, one of the things, and it kind of ties into what we're talking about with like the offensive coordinator position in particular. Um, I'm very interested to see how many wide receivers they add, just because the more you add, the more your rookies get buried. So that's something that I'm going to find really interesting to watch, just because like Jalen Polk, second round draft capital, top of the second round, let alone like
Mhm.
how good are the receivers that you want to add? Because you do want to use him, you don't want to waste that draft capital, but at the same time,
Well,
it's like
yeah,
what has he shown? So it'll be tough for them to figure out.
yeah. I get the point of not wanting to waste the draft capital, but at the same time, it's a brand new coaching staff. Mike
Mhm.
Vrabel's coming in here. He's like, none of you guys have earned anything.
Yeah.
You're all starting over. So I think that the argument of wanting to not waste that draft pick is kind of ruined by just Mike Vrabel coming in.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I
yeah,
agree.
so moving on to the defense, Terrell Williams, he was the Lions defensive line coach and also the defensive line coach for the Titans when Mike Vrabel was there. And he has been slated and said to be Mike Vrabel's top assistant. I mean, he gave him, was it the 2023 season that
Mhm.
he he gave Williams a chance to coach one of the preseason games?
Yeah, and he named him assistant head coach, I think, that season. I think
Oh,
that was his
really?
title.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even better.
Mhm.
Yeah, so very well respected assistant. We'll see how he does. I really hope he can get that defensive line um, back backing up, which
Mhm.
I think he can because even with Aiden Hutchinson out this season for the Lions, he was still able to scheme up guys free to get after the quarterback. He was able to scheme around the injuries, and that's
Mhm.
really impressive for really any assistant.
Yeah, I think he's gonna be a really big boost for this, um, for just the defensive line in particular, obviously. I'm interested to see how it'll work with, like, the secondary, if he's gonna necessarily, like, coordinate them. I know that sounds, like, funny to say, but it's true. Like he's a defensive line guy. Throughout his college coaching career, he was always with the defensive line. I know he was with the Dolphins for a little bit, coaching their defensive line. It's been strictly defensive line. Um, I'm interested to see if someone like Mike Pellegrino, Brian Belichick, if they're back. I'm interested to see if they're going to be like the passing game coordinators. So they're going to do something with a secondary, like on their own, and just coordinate with Terrell Williams, and put everything together rather than him telling the secondary what they're gonna do. Which in a way, not to stray off of like the Terrell Williams topic, but like for example, someone like Mike Pellegrino, who I've never met one person that doesn't like Mike Pellegrino. Um,
Mhm.
I feel like he that's a perfect way to like promote him for the work he's done, giving him something like a passing game coordinator promotion, along with the cornerbacks coach. So I don't honestly people don't talk about the defense that much, and it's kind of like I'm okay with not talking about it if that makes sense. Like it's just I trust Mike Vrabel, I trust Terrell Williams. I think Keon White's going to benefit the most out of everybody on that defensive side of the ball. One thing I will say, I'm interested to see what scheme they'll run. If they're going to run four down or three down defensive linemen. I'm interested to
Yeah,
see that because the Patriots have been I'm hold on. Now I'm getting confused. They've usually done three, right?
yeah. Bill was a huge base nickel guy.
hmm So some guys might get put out of place or just have to learn new roles. So it'll
Yeah,
be interesting to see like, who kind of gets bumped out of their job or can't do well in their new job. Um, the position group I'm looking at most is going to be the linebackers just because like if you look at the guys that they had in Tennessee, you think of like Aziz Al Shair, you think of David Long Jr., you think of Jayon Brown. Like these guys were like smaller linebackers that were more athletic. Um, that's not what the Patriots typically use. And someone like Jelani Tavai comes up because he's like one of those big, like old school linebackers that aren't that common anymore. And I'm really interested to see what Vrabel's going to do with someone like him if he's going to even keep him around. Um, I know Taylor Kyle's just released a mock draft that he had. What's I think his name is Jahad. What's his name? Jahad. I forgot his name. The linebacker from Alabama. I'll
Oh,
find it
Campbell.
somewhere. Is it Jahad Campbell?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Maybe.
But
Yeah,
someone like him would be perfect for their scheme. So it'll be interesting to see like what they do with the linebackers they have. I know a lot of people are completely off board with like Martin Mapu as a linebacker. I know Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers could be like that smaller linebacker. They could play in the box like that. I don't know. I'm not a coach. I'm interested to see where they put these guys.
yeah,
Everyone's gonna kind of, even though they're playing the same position, they're gonna be playing new roles with this new defense. So I'm interested to see how it'll be.
yeah. There's a lot of question marks about the
Mhm,
defense, most specifically because Terrell Williams hasn't been a defensive coordinator yet. It's easier to say all these things about Josh McDaniels because we've seen him forever. But when
mhm,
you talk about Terrell Williams, it's just what we can guess that he's going to do. So a lot of question
mhm,
marks there. But with that, I think we should move on to Jeremy Springer. I love that they brought him back. He was the one of the lone bright spots on that coaching
mhm.
staff from last season. So, Carlos, what do you think about that move?
I love that man. He's so cool. He's like he's genuinely like one of the nicest people I've ever spoken to. Like one of like the most like real like coach. Like you can tell when someone's a coach. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
he was meant to be a coach. I think he's going to be great for the special teams unit. Look what he did with Brendan Schooler. He got him like he coached him up. He helped him to get his first ever All Pro. Look what he did with Del Pettis. He was a personal protector as a rookie, and he excelled at that job. And they were the second best unit according to PFF this past season. Like I think the special teams is going to be. I don't want to when I say it's really good, people are like, okay, and what does that mean? You know what I mean? Um,
yeah,
but I think the special teams will be good. I don't. That's going to be something that's going to kind of be put on the back burner because it's like, okay, like we know Jeremy Springer's there. We know they're going to be fine. Like let's focus on the other position groups. So
yeah.
I think with him there, they're solid. Like they don't even have to worry.
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy how quick of a turnaround that was from 2 seasons ago to last season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a huge PFF grade guy, but this it's just shows how much they improved from
Yeah.
previous years. They finished PFF ranked them as the second best special teams unit in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
That's saying
Yeah.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that, going to move on to potential assistants that we might think can join the coaching staff under Mike Vrabel. So right now, I'm just pulling up the list. They hired Tony Dews as the running backs coach. He was most recently with the Jets, and he was the running back coach with Mike Vrabel in Tennessee from 2018 to 2022. And under the radar one, Clinton McMillan was hired as a defensive assistant. He was an
Mm-hmm.
assistant with the Titans. He has been since 2021. And that's basically all they got, I think, right now, right? Well,
They
they hired
also
Tom Quinn too back.
what was that? Sorry, I didn't hear.
They got Tom Quinn back too.
Yeah, yeah. They also just this morning, according to Joseph, how do you pronounce his name? Pasteris?
No,
Paster?
I
I
don't
think
want
it's
to butcher it.
Pasteris. Anyways, with Joseph, all of you, he's a reliable source. I trust him. I'm not saying I'm putting all my eggs in one basket and saying, I'll ride ride for everything he puts out, but he's been reliable on all Patriot stuff. But with that being said, he put out this morning that Giants defensive assistant Zach, I believe it's pronounced Core. He's going to be hired by the Patriots as well. He was hold on, let me pull it up. He worked for Mike Vrabel for 4 years in Tennessee, 1 season as a quality control coach, and then 3 seasons as an inside linebackers coaching assistant. So he's someone that's going to join the staff. No one knows what position he's going to hold. Same thing with who was the previous one you just mentioned? I forgot his name already. Another defensive assistant. You just mentioned it.
I forgot his name already because he was just so like.
Anyways, my point is just that. Yeah.
Clinton McMillan.
Yeah. But these guys, like, they're going to be assigned a position group, in my opinion. I don't know. I don't think they're going to be assistants to a position group. I think they will be assigned a position group. We'll see what happens with someone like Drew Wilkins. Like, as he was the outside linebackers coach, he's going to be coaching at the. I think he's the defensive coordinator. No, at the Shrine Bowl. Or he has some. Right?
Or,
he has some like
I don't know if he's
position.
the DC, but yeah, he might be.
Yeah, I know he has some bigger position at the Shrine Bowl. We'll see if he sticks around. I know a lot of people really liked him, so it'll be interesting to see if like he sticks with outside linebackers. Maybe this new hire, Zach Core, maybe he gets the inside linebackers, and who knows what that means for like Dante Hightower. I personally don't think he's going to be back.
Yeah, it was fun seeing him as a coach. He was one of my favorite players from the dynasty.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how they fill out the rest of this coaching staff. I think they've been making some interesting hires in terms of like back end guys. I like it's not necessarily like big names or not big names, but it's not like well known coaching or positional coaches names because one of the people that they hired was the guy from I know his last name's McDonald. Let me pull this up. The one from the Red Sox, the football strategy.
Oh,
strategy guy.
Yeah, one of their analysts.
Joe McDonald. They're hiring him as a
Yeah.
senior analyst for football strategy. Like stuff like that, I think is going to matter a lot behind the scenes, and we're not going to really understand what they do, but I think it's going to benefit the team.
Yeah.
Some same thing with like Stretch, John Stryker. I think he's been like the talk of the town in my opinion when it comes to like the game management, the people that aren't necessarily coaches but just like back end
Yeah.
guys that are going to be working
He
behind the scenes.
was yeah, he was Rabel's Ernie Adams, basically.
Exactly. Like Vrabel, I watched every single interview of Mike Vrabel's from like the past like 3 years, and he talks like so highly about him. And people joke. I don't know if you watched that Tom Compton impersonation of Mike Vrabel,
Mhm.
but he kept referring to Stretch over and over again, and if he's doing it that often that they're gonna impersonate him by like bringing up Stretch every like 5 minutes, that tells you how important the guy is to Vrabel. So I think he's going to do wonders for this team. He's the one that kind of messed with Belichick when they had that I forgot what year it was, but when Mike Vrabel got those like flags over and over again against the Patriots to drain the clock a little bit, um,
Mhm.
it was Stretch's idea. Like he's the one that thought of that. Vrabel said that he was like laughing in his on the mic the whole time, saying that Bill was super mad, all this and that. So I think he's going to be one of the most important hires that's going to go under the radar just because he's not a positional coach.
Yeah, definitely. I've been thinking about wide receivers coach. I've seen Wes Welker's name
Wes
get bounced
Welker.
around, and Chad
Mhm.
O'Shea. He would be
Mhm.
coming back. How do you feel about those two guys? Because I know Welker and Bill didn't have a great relationship, and people have appointed to that as a reason why he may not come here.
Mhm.
But again, Bill's gone. We'll see if he does want to come here. But how would you feel about Welker?
Um, Welker would honestly be my top choice just because who else would you want coaching wide receivers besides a guy that actually played for the coordinator that's gonna be telling the wide receivers what to do? I feel like
Mhm.
that's like the perfect system to set up. However, I don't think personally, I don't know the guy. I don't know how his mind works. I just feel like Wes Welker wouldn't want to come back here. Like he's been in Miami. Like he left here a long time ago. He's been living in Miami. I'm pretty sure he was with the Niners at one point. I might be wrong. Um,
Maybe.
but my point is that he hasn't been with he hasn't been in like the New England area in a long time. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of it more from like a personal choice standpoint. Like, does he really want to move back to the New England area? Clearly, he left off on a bad note, and he kind of burned some bridges with like Bill. Um, so I don't think it's realistic. Would I love it? Yes, I think he would be my top choice for a wide receivers coach. Chad O'Shea,
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna leave the Browns. So I'm really looking into. I want to look into like where the connections are gonna be because this receivers coach hire is gonna be very important.
Yeah.
But my home run hire would be Wes Welker.
Yeah. I think I agree with you on that, specifically because of the point that he'd be able to really help the wide receivers understand how to play in the McDaniel's offense. Just because, again, like you mentioned, he's played in it before. Um, Moving to the defense, is there anyone uh, you have your eye on right now? Like I know one of my guys is I forgot his last name. It was Justin Hamilton. Justin Hamilton. He
Mhm.
was the safeties coach with the Titans. But then again, we still have to wait on Pellegrino and Belichick. So if
Mhm.
those guys don't come back, who do you think could replace them?
I'm not even gonna sit here and lie to you. I don't know any DB coaches that are available that or that might be
Yeah,
linked to this coaching tree. Just because I feel like Pellegrino and Belichick are kind of locks to stay. If they stayed with Gerard Mayo and if their units did relatively well, like you could easily credit Brian Belichick with the development of Del Pettis, and obviously Mike Pellegrino just works wonders and he pumps out all pros, Pro Bowl cornerbacks all the time. So I just feel like those guys aren't gonna want to leave, and I don't see why Vrabel wouldn't want them back. So
yeah,
I think those guys are locks. The one I will say, and it just happened like a couple minutes ago. Joseph Pasteris also put out that the Lions' assistant defensive line coach Cameron Davis is parting ways with them. Um, that would be a very clear link to Terrell Williams. He could
Yeah,
definitely follow him over here. I don't know much about him. I could research a little bit about Cameron Davis
I don't know
while
much
you're
about
talking
him, to
about
be
someone else.
honest.
But that's just a name to look out for, just in case, like maybe they are parting ways because he is following Terrell Williams here, or now there's a chance for him to follow him here. So that is a name to look out for.
Yeah, definitely. Before we move on, we were gonna. If you missed the beginning of the show, me and Los, we will be down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and we were going to give a couple of our guys that we're going to be looking at specifically for the Patriots. But before we get to that, I wanted to get to this question I got from one of my buddies at school. If we draft a receiver and sign T. Higgins, do you think they will want to keep Bourne, Polk, or Baker, considering Pop and Booty most likely are locks to be on the roster next season? Carlos, you want to
Um,
start with that?
I if I'm being completely honest, I don't think. Yes, Booty is more of a roster lock rather than not. But I would honestly put Polk and Pop as the two roster locks personally. Like I said, that doesn't mean Booty's not going to make the roster. I think he's more likely to, but um, I think that if T. Higgins shows up, I think that's bad news for Javon Baker. He's the fourth round pick. Same thing with Kendrick Bourne. Both of those guys, I think, are going to be fighting for that last spot. And I brought it up earlier, right? Like if they bring in two receivers that are going to be roster locks, it's gonna push down guys down the depth chart, and that's usually the younger guys or the older veteran guys that that might not be producing as well as they once used to. Like as much as I love Kendrick Bourne, like he's coming off a torn ACL. Obviously, he's not going to have a 1,000-yard season straight off of an ACL tear, but he could be like a casualty. But with the Josh McDaniels hire, I think he will be a roster lock. That's just I guess you could call it a hot take. I think just because Josh McDaniels is back and how good he was with Josh McDaniels, I'm assuming they had a really good rapport with each other. I heard Kendrick Bourne was a visual learner, and Josh McDaniels was able to like teach him stuff rather like visually rather than like through notes, through writing and everything. So I'm telling you, the best, like my cop out answer would just be that it's going to be Baker that would be off the roster.
Yeah,
If they add Higgins, but realistically, I have that same exact question for the for the coaching staff or for the front
mhm.
office, honestly, because that receiver room has guys that it's like people like Booty, for example. I see so many people telling me like, oh, he's a third or fourth best receiver on any other team. And people in New England usually say like, oh, like he's a roster lock. Like we need him no matter what. So it's like very interesting to see how they gauge like the talent value and who they have on roster. Cause I feel like for us in particular, we view these guys a little bit more valuable than they might be. Someone's honestly, same thing with like Pop Douglas. Like, yes, everyone loves him. He's very good, but realistically, how good is he if he were put on 31 other NFL teams? Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
I'm interested to see how this front office gauges their value.
yeah. I do love Pop, but I think he honestly he could be replaced in the slot as like the slot starter
Mhm.
this upcoming season. Like whether it's you sign Chris Godwin and you want to put him in there, you draft like Xavier Restrepo, you draft like a Mecca
Mhm.
Egbuka or something. I don't know if you can be that volume guy,
Mhm.
but I think Josh McDaniels is going to have a really fun time scheming things up for him. Like
Yeah.
I know, I mean, they're not like super similar, but they kind of are. Like Marcus Jones and Demario Douglas, they could totally scheme up some of the stuff they do for Marcus um, with Pop.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think it's going to be really interesting to see how this wide receiver room kind of fills out and expands over the off season. It's going to be really, really crowded, I think, because there
Mhm.
is a world where they add three, maybe even four receivers. Like you look at free agency, they sign one of like T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, or something, and then maybe they want to add like another vet. They sign like Darius Slayton or something,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then they honestly could double dip in the draft. Like this is another
Yeah.
draft where I think it's fine if you double dip at receiver. And I
Mm.
know they did it last year, but again, going back to the point of a whole new coaching staff coming into place, I really don't see anyone being like 100% safe, not even Pop or Keyshawn Booty, although I think they're like Cam said, most likely locks.
Mm.
But Bourne is it's really tough with Bourne just because he's gone through a lot over the last 2 years. And we'll see how he bounces back with Josh McDaniels. Hopefully he does, because I would love to see Bourne back out there getting 800 yards and several touchdowns in a season. And he's just an awesome guy to have on the team.
Yeah.
Like he is definitely one of the biggest like fan favorites in New
Mm.
England. He's just a
Yeah.
fun guy to have. So I don't really know if he's 100% safe. I would hope he is, but given the injuries and just the new regime coming in, I don't know.
With the
And
McDaniels hire, their connection.
I know, but I mean, hopefully he turns back into 2021 KB. That would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Baker, he might be done. I really don't know if Polk returns either. Like we'll have to see. I don't think he's a lock by any means. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how the receiver room kind of fills out.
Yeah, training camp, this whole offseason, OTAs, like it's gonna be very telling, like who sticks around. I think they're gonna keep a lot of receivers on that 90-man roster for a good chunk of the offseason. I don't think we're gonna be seeing, no offense to these guys, but like guys like a Matt Landers, a Christian Wilkerson, like these like bottom end receiver room guys. I don't think we're gonna see that. I think it's gonna be a like a where it's not stack. I'm gonna say stacked receiver room in the sense of like some of these guys should be on an NFL roster, but they're typically like fours or fives in a receiver room, if that makes sense. We're gonna have like a lot of fours and
Yeah,
fives that are the eighth receiver in the room. Does that like I feel like that's the best way I could explain it. That it's
yeah,
just gonna be a lot of competition. We're gonna see who stands out, who picks up the offensive scheme easiest. I think that's gonna be the most telling thing. And just who gets the most reps during that offseason. When we get all those reports of like this person mossed this person during camp, and then they decided they caught like 5 more passes in a row, and it turns out that was like, I don't know, Xavier Restrepo, and everyone's like, okay, turn like he's probably going to be a roster lock. Like it'll be interesting to see like how this reporting or what gets reported coming out of OTAs, especially. I think OTAs and rookie mini camp. I don't think we're gonna find out much from that, but I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too far ahead.
but that like training camp thing, that is just like that's just what happens with some of these guys. Like Javon Baker, for instance. I don't mean to
Mm-hmm.
keep like bashing Baker by any means, um, but like he would have those moments. He'd make a great catch, and then he'd be involved in 7-on-7s. He'd be
Mm-hmm.
involved in 11-on-11s. Like he'd have a really good day, and you could see this dude is a playmaker, and he can come down with the football. But when it comes down to learning the playbook and knowing when and how and where to do things, that is a big hurdle for some guys that they just can't get over. And it's like screw the talent.
Mm-hmm.
You got to know the playbook.
Yeah, yeah. I forgot which big name receiver it was. I saw an interview. This was a while ago, but he said like, yeah, the first year in the NFL, like I could only be out there for like 5 certain packages. Like I did not know the playbook at all, and then it wasn't until the second year that everything clicked for him, and that's when he like blossomed into a good. I can't remember who it was, but it was a really good receiver, and it was just very telling because it's like most people don't think about that side of football. They just think about like the talent.
Yeah,
And you just named like someone like Javon Baker, just not to keep bringing him up, but like someone that has like all the talent in the world, but maybe he just cannot grasp the playbook or just like the X's and O's side of NFL football. So I'm rooting for him, obviously, but
yeah,
there's just some guys that you just can't teach that. It's just at some point it's like their own knowledge and skill of being able to actually learn.
yeah. And like Baker, like like I watched him. It didn't count, but he almost wait. I don't know if it did or didn't. It might have, but I don't think it did. Watched him play Alabama. Obviously not last college season because he was in the NFL. The season before that, when he was at UCF, he like toe tapped the sideline, caught the ball like this with his like. I don't know how he did it. Like I think his toe was out of bounds. Like it was just crazy. Like he would make those plays like every other game. And but sometimes they just can't. Those guys just can't put it all together.
Yeah.
Enough bashing Javon Baker. I feel bad. But so we're gonna name off a few guys that are going to the Senior Bowl that we're gonna be watching down there in Mobile next week. Carlos, I just got like three guys. I don't know if you had a list you made before this, but if you want to start.
One name I brought it up to you the other day too. Cornerback Maxwell Hairston, I think, from Kentucky. I think he's going to be a name to watch just because he is going to be a lot of I've seen, a lot of the projections I see are him either in like the high second round or the lower second round, which I think the Patriots are going to be in range for, like whether they want to trade up into the end of the second or take him at the top of the second. I'm not vouching for them to take a cornerback that high, but he's very good. I think he's going to be someone that's going to stand out at the Senior Bowl just because of his length, the type of corner he is. I think he can easily boost his stock in front of scouts next week. So that's one person that I'm very keen on watching and seeing like as a potential Patriot.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy, and I think it's really decently possible that the Patriots end up with two second round picks in this draft. Like whether it's a trade down, whether they got 2 third rounders if they want to trade up. I think it's a real possibility, and again, they can hit on offense and defense in the second round, or they can like go offense, hit defense twice in the second round. Like a lot of possibilities there. I'm gonna stick at corner. One of my guys was Quincy Riley, the cornerback from Louisville. You talk about a guy that has a knack for creating turnovers and a defense that really struggled in creating turnovers last season. Throughout his career with Louisville, 15 interceptions and 31 pass breakups. Like, come on. I mean, the cornerback room, it is like they need like a really, really nice number 2 next to Gonzo on the other side of the field, which I feel like they don't have someone who's consistently good enough to do that. And I think Riley, I think right now he's an early day 3 projection. I think he could work himself into day 2. So that's what I'm going to be looking for down there. I don't know if you have
my other ones that I'm looking out for, it's not necessarily one person in particular, but I think the edge group that's going to be there is going to be stacked, and someone from these three, someone out of Kyle Kennard from South Carolina, Mike Green from Marshall, and I've never been able to pronounce his name, Donovan Ezerauku from Boston College. I've never been able to pronounce his name. Out of those three, I think one of those three is going to solidify themselves as a day 1 pick. But those three guys are realistically second round targets. Maybe one of them falls to the 3rd round, but I think they're going to go in the 2nd round. The one in particular that stands out to me is Kyle Kennard. He actually played with Keon White at Georgia Tech. And he completely, after he transferred to South Carolina, he completely took off, and now he's like one of the bigger names to know. So I do think that he's going to be someone that sticks out. But I feel like a lot of the draft gurus' favorite guys is Mike Green from Marshall. Have you seen that one clip of him that he like faked going inside and then in one sudden movement, I don't know what he did.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Crazy. He's going to be a first rounder.
Insane. You think so?
Yeah, definitely.
He had 17 sacks in the FBS. He led the FBS in sacks. Like he's someone that I recently saw projected to the Patriots. I think it was Scout D NFL or Daniel Rotman.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
he had him going to
He likes
the
him.
Patriots. Yeah, he likes him a lot. So um, I'm interested to see if he does even fall to the second round. Maybe just because he's a smaller school guy, he does. But I do agree he is like a first round talent. But the Senior Bowl that week at the Senior Bowl is going to be very telling, just because of the talent that he's going to line up against.
Yeah, definitely. And then another one of my guys, I think it's very possible that they add a running back in this draft.
Mhm.
Because you look at what they have right now, I'm pretty sure JaMychal Hasty is a free agent. They didn't um, offer Kevin Harris a futures contract. And so right now it's Ramondre, Antonio Gibson, and Terrell Jennings. And let's be honest, like I like Terrell Jennings as a player, but realistically, he's probably gonna be an RB4 practice squad guy again,
Mhm.
if he's not picked up in the summer by someone
Mhm.
else. But so I really like Devin Neal out of Kentucky. I think he is one of the more polished runners coming out of this draft class. He's a very just overall well-rounded runner, and I think he's got really great vision and
Mhm.
patience for a guy coming out of college. And he can be a pass catcher when you need him to. And I think
Mhm.
I think he's going to be a really nice player in the league.
Yeah, I think personally, I don't know if he'll be in their range because maybe he might go too high for them to draft, but Andrew Mukuba, the
Oh
Texas
yeah,
safety, that dude's every game I watched of Texas, like you noticed him. And I just think that he's someone I don't know how much good a safety can do to improve their draft stock at Mobile, just because like I'm he like he just seems like someone that's just like a what's his name? Do you remember Malik Mustafa? He went to Wake Forest
yeah, yeah. I remember
from
the
the Niners.
Patriots.
Yeah, yeah,
They went to Wake Forest and they were looking at
yeah,
him at
yeah.
their program there.
I'm not saying they play the same exact way, but I get that same vibe from them that they're just like those guys that play with their hair on fire that are just all over the field. Um, so he's someone that I'm excited to see perform against this like higher level of competition. Obviously, he's at Texas, he's in the SEC. Like, what more do you need to see? But I just think that he's someone that's wasn't really talked about much, and now he's getting talked about like more and more and more. One person, the last one that I wanted to mention though, since you mentioned running backs, I'm almost positive Woody Marks is going to be there. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's
I haven't looked into him too much. Where does he go again?
he goes to USC, so he was the running back at
USC. Yeah.
USC. He he's legitimately like I'm not saying he plays the same exact way, but he would be James White reincarnated in this offense. Like that guy, he had 83 receptions in 2021 as a running back. Um, like he's he's always available whenever whenever they have a passing situation, a third down situation. 2020 he had 60 receptions. 2021 he had 83. 2022 he had 48. Then 2023 he dropped down to 23, and then this past season he had 47 receptions. So if you want a pass catching running back, that's him. Like he's going to be that guy that you target in the later rounds, probably I'm assuming day 3, maybe even undrafted, we'll see. But he's someone that I would love for the Patriots to get, just because of his pass catching ability, and he would fill in that James White role like to a T. Like he'd be that perfect fit for it.
Yeah. And I do really love that you brought up Makuba. He's a very versatile defensive back. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm looking at his defensive snaps throughout his college career. He primarily played deep safety, but he had almost 150 snaps in the box, 71 at slot in the slot. And in 2023, he played more slot than he did deep or in the box. And he just lines up everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can do so many different things.
Yeah, so I feel like there's gonna be obviously we're gonna watch everybody, you know.
Wait, I do have one more. Have you watched Jalen Noel? Noel Noel. I don't know how to pronounce it.
I know the name. I know that. Is he the receiver? Is he a receiver from
Yeah,
Iowa, right, or Iowa State?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about him. I haven't watched much on him, but I know a lot of people love him.
Very, very fluid, smooth route runner. Um, and he's honestly he's more physical for his uh, size than you'd expect, but overall
Mm.
he's just a good receiver, and I really want to watch him.
I'm excited
He's
for
like
Jalen Royals too.
he attacks the ball. Like we talked about Polk attacking the ball, this guy
Mm.
really attacks the ball. He's got really good ball instincts.
I think Jalen Royals too from Utah State. He's another one that like the draft guys love. I'm excited to see him in person because a lot of these guys, I'm not even gonna lie. The one honestly, not to just keep naming guys, I feel like we're naming like the whole roster, but I feel like the one that I've been hearing the most about just because of like the Patriots. I don't know why. I've been hearing a lot of Patriots people talking about him is the receiver from TCU,
Oh,
Savion
safety, yeah.
Williams. Like I I'm pretty sure he's like over like 6'3", and he's projected to run like a 4.4 or even a like a high 4.3. Um he's like a big dude that's just fast and athletic, and he might not have like the production or like that star receiver production in college, but some people are thinking that he could become something big in the NFL. That's not necessarily the type of guy I want the Patriots to draft just because I want it to be like a
Mhm.
solidified guy, but
Yeah,
that's someone that if he has like depending on his measurements, I think his measurements at the Senior Bowl, if he does like measure in his measurements and his one-on-one like what like those drills that they run against the DBs, I think that's going to be
yeah,
so
the one on
telling, and
one.
it could
Yeah,
easily boost his draft stock just because of like his size and his height, weight, speed. Like I think he's someone that can easily shoot up draft boards and become like who was the receiver? He's on the Cowboys now. He just got traded there from the Panthers.
oh,
Jonathan
Mingo.
Mingo. Yeah, I think he's going to be someone like that. That it's like no one really talked about him, and then closer like as the draft got closer, all of a sudden now he was a second round projected guy, and then he ended up going in the high second round. I could see that happening with him as well. So um when we talk about high second round, who's picking in the high second round? It's the Patriots. So that's someone that I'm interested in seeing as well.
Yeah, Savion's one of those guys. Well, first of all, he's 6'3" and runs like a running back with the ball in his hands. It's kind of
Hmm.
crazy. And he's just one of those guys, like, he might not end up on your team, or he probably won't end up on your favorite team.
Hmm.
But he's just one of those guys you want to follow through the draft process, and wherever he lands, like, he's just a guy you want to follow throughout his career. Just see how he does.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I completely agree.
He's
I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, like he's someone that if they get their hands on him at like day 4 capital, maybe even day 3, I'm excited to see what they can do. I before we go, I have a special message from someone on the Patriots that I asked about their opinion on new defensive coordinator Terrell Williams because he had been coached by him. I believe it was his rookie year. Patriots defensive tackle Devon Godshaw. I asked him what his thoughts were on the hire. He just said he told me great leader and believes in what he does, which is great. I think he's a good coach, but an even better person. I'm excited to work with him. So he coached him back then when he was on the Dolphins. I think that's the only Patriots player that's been coached by Terrell Williams before. I might be wrong, but from what I found, I think that he is. Um,
Probably, yeah.
but I'm not saying like Devon Godshaw. Well, how do I word this? Like Devon Godshaw is one of many defensive line players that have raved about him and how good of a person he is, and they're all like they all root for him. They all love Terrell Williams, so I'm really
Mhm.
excited to see what he's going to do. I think he's going to make a big difference to this defensive line.
Yeah, and the guys on the Lions, I've just seen video after video after video of guys just praising him. So
Yeah,
I'm really excited to see what he can do.
yeah.
But with that, I think that wraps up our show. It was great to be back, Los. Great to get back in the swing of things. We'll definitely be back next week, or in some capacity, I'm guessing.
Yeah, for sure.
Down in Mobile. Yeah. Um, and yeah, so thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate everyone who took some time out of their day to listen or watch to this show. Watch this show, but Yeah, we'll let you guys when we go live again, and we'll see you then.
Thank you guys.